All right, welcome to episode 4 of our video podcast. I'm Ryan Fring, creative director here at Backflip. John Shoemaker, other creative director here at Backflip. We got to fight one time.
Another.
And then one of us can be like more creative director. And then we got Phil too joining us, who's our designer, developer, just cool guy extraordinaire. How's that for a setup?
If you will.
It's
Philip, I'm sorry.
Too long to fit on my business card, but yes, that's my official title. Yeah.
And he's here to talk with us about authenticity and branding. And this is a real fun one. You actually wrote a post a little while ago about this topic, and it got some traction on the socials. That's what I say.
Oh,
by the way, I tried to spell "yoush." Do you guys see that?
Yoush, yeah.
So according to Urban Dictionary, it's Y-O-U-S-H. So
yeah,
that's what I hear.
Little tip for you today. So we're going to be talking about authenticity and branding. We're going to take a little recap of your previous post, and then we're actually going to talk about Champagne Tortoise, which is a product we worked on with some good friends of ours, Carbon 4, and how that authenticity in their branding came out through this partnership with us. You know, when you can connect on that level. So why don't you start off? What is this authenticity and branding?
Yeah. Well, the biggest thing is that it starts, the way that I wrote it in the post was that I want to know more.
He's very proud of it.
About you. I am very proud of it. I'm very proud of it. It starts with you know, and that's kind of how I wanted to frame it. Nobody cares about anybody else's story or idea of what you should be. It's more interesting to figure out who you are and then build the brand up from there. So when we talk about that, it's mostly us asking our clients questions to get them to figure out, you know, why are they doing what they're doing? You know, what motivated them to decide to do whatever that thing is. What are some fun, interesting stories along the way? You know, what's their history? And if we can paint a picture of that, and if I can paint a mental picture of that, then I can get to know them. And then, you know, we can start to build a brand that is truly reflective of who they are.
Well, and once we start doing that, typically like people start lighting up and they start getting more enthusiastic about their thing. They're initially struggling to like talk about their company, or they kind of maybe have clunky language when they are, you know, needing a branding effort or something. But then when you just get into well, just tell me what you're doing, that's when people kind of start lighting up.
Yeah. Why do you do what you do?
Right. Yeah. And yeah, if you ask the question like, okay, tell me who you are, you know what I mean? Like that, they won't say anything. It's sort of it's just too difficult of a question. But if you can,
it's kind of like the culmination of that exercise.
Right.
You know, who are you? Okay. We are bold. What is our marketing? How's that go?
Clearly it's effective.
Where am I going to cover?
We've been working on so many things. Like, I can't remember anything.
Yeah. Be bold, change hearts.
Something else. Let's make awesome.
Live strong. I can't remember. Yeah.
Strong. You still got your bracelet, I see.
Yes. Haven't.
But
1998.
But that is through the exercise that you're talking about, through, you know, exploring why are we, you know, doing what we're doing? How do we get here? You know, all that stuff. And then you can answer that question, you know, a little more succinctly, but it's not until you go through that exercise. And something interesting you said is that it's not, you know, to start off, we need to start at the root of this. It's not, what do people say about you? It's like, what do you say about yourself? And start from there. And then we can actually address and handle, okay, so here's your perspective of yourself. And then here's somebody else's perspective about you. You know, how do we work with that? You know, what do we do?
Yeah. And other people's perception, right? So I think that, I mean, it's crucially important to a business to think about how are we being perceived, and how do I want to be perceived? But you can't start there so much. You can't say, well, this company and this company and this company, this is what I think of. I want people to think of me like that, so I'm going to change my style and do some different things to kind of force that. I want people to
see us like Apple.
Right. Instead, just decide or think about who you actually already are, and then that can be, and that's where good brands start. I mean, you know, you can't It's very, very difficult to decide that you want to be a particular way and try to force it, because it just isn't going to happen. I think
because then it's not
authentic. Nicely done.
Yeah.
Yes, very nicely done. Well, and I think we experience that personally too. You know, I can, just thinking about who I am personally, I can think of, well, I want to work on this particular part of my character, or I want to work on this particular thing. But if I just try to be somebody that I'm not, people figure it out really, really quickly.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
and that's kind of the way that it is in the business world as well. You know, if a company tries to be something they're not, people will see right through it really, really quickly, and that'll work against you.
Yeah, we were just talking, I don't know what the order was, about, I think it's probably before this, so you probably saw this episode already, content marketing, and the example of the Coca-Cola Kendall, was it Kendall Jenner, right?
Oh man.
Commercial versus the Heineken version
Okay.
of it, which I can't remember if I've seen the Heineken version, but it sounds like that was a very impactful, well done, you know, actually inclusive piece of marketing, whereas the Kendall Jenner one was a little bit more of just jumping on a hot topic and trying to sell a product, you know, so not being authentic, because what does Coke sell? It was Coke, right? Yeah. What does Coke sell? Happiness. Well, this is drastically different from that. You know, we're trying to capitalize on these cultural events going on right now with an unrelatable character, you know, in an unrelatable, silly situation, you know, which is wholly not authentic.
Right. No, that's an example of we want to look like a particular thing, and then you just try and force it in there, which isn't interesting. People see through it. If there's one thing that, you know, I think, like, in the world today, there's a lot of different opinions. We all, you know, there's people. Yeah, believe it or not. Yeah. Hot take.
No.
Yeah, we all have, there's a lot of different opinions, and people have different tastes. Nobody likes being deceived. Nobody likes hypocrisy. We all have a very sensitive, I think, sort of radar for that sort of thing. And I can have different opinions about, you know, I like this versus I don't like that, or whatever. But I can always appreciate if somebody is coming across authentically, and just being honest about who they are. So that's crucially important, I think. You know, it's just deciding that being who you are is more appealing and attractive to your customers, to potential customers, than, you know, trying to fit a mold.
Yeah, real quick. This is a little bit of a tangent, but who you are, recognizing who you are, but then who you want to be, or what you want to be, or how you want to be perceived. You know, obviously there's goodness in being more good, or doing more good, or, you know, we can talk about it that way. But, you know, there's virtue, there's the imitation of virtue. You know, how to become virtuous, or how do you start a habit?
Right.
Well, you just start, you know, you fake it till you make it is essentially what it is. So with authenticity then, what does that look like in terms of identifying who you are and where you want to go,
right,
and still being authentic? Yeah,
I don't know. To me, that has to happen organically. If you look at, I'll use Nike as an example, right? When we talk about branding, Nike is the gold standard. It's whenever we talk about logo design, right? It's like, ooh, I want something like the swoosh. You know what I mean? Like, first of all, there's nothing
we've heard that before, haven't we?
Yeah.
I feel like.
Oh yeah, it's the first thing that people bring up. The swoosh, Target, Adidas, whatever. Like these.
Nobody asked for Adidas.
Nobody. Yeah, nobody does, because they ask for Nike. They you know, the Nike brand wins that battle. But the Adidas brand is really strong too. I guess that's beside the point.
I'm just causing problems.
That's true. You are causing problems.
Feels such a nice person. Like, you just went off for about a minute there trying to make Adidas feel better.
It's okay. It's okay, Adidas.
Yeah, they're
don't feel bad.
This, right?
Nike's. Yeah.
Well, I guess we're not getting Adidas as a contract.
That Midwest branding agency, that creative marketing agency, saying some pretty hard things about us.
Exactly.
I don't know why they talk like they're Youpers or something.
Yeah, Adidas is stationed in Marinette, in Wisconsin. Actually, I don't know if you know their headquarters. Their world headquarters is there.
Yeah. I totally know that.
Yeah. Anyway, the swoosh, you know, the Nike brand wasn't. There's nothing inherent about that icon. You know what I mean? I guess you could look at it and say, well, it kind of depicts motion. It kind of looks like something moving. But the idea of Nike isn't really in that thing. I mean, it doesn't really matter. That's
Right.
that it's the brand has become representative of something else, and so you associate it with Jordan, you associate it with LeBron James, you associate it with this idea that like the best in the world wear this thing,
Right.
you know what I mean? And that, so it's got this prestige, and it's that mark that represents all of that stuff. That happened organically. Their brand has, clearly they need to make decisions about how they want to be perceived, but that over time has been developed, and they've learned more about who they are, who their athletes are, and who their target market is, and it's sort of grown and been fleshed out in that way. It's different than sitting in a meeting and being like, I want people to think of us the same way that they think of this place over here. You know what I mean? How do we do that? And it's like, well, we'll make our stuff look just like their stuff. It's like, it doesn't really work that way.
Is there a way, obviously again, kind of that aspirational approach, right? So I'm a shoe company and I want to be perceived in a way, that is like Nike, or as like Nike as my small shoe company can be. But I'm not Nike, how would you approach that conversation? Because there is something good in that, right? Like, here's a good brand. I want to be like a good brand. But perhaps my identity is different.
Yeah.
How would you approach that?
Well, you company owner, like, I want to know more about you.
Shoemaker shoes.
Shoemaker shoes.
For some reason, it's my business and not yours.
Yeah.
I just lost that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You took out the copyright on it, before I thought to do it, and now
John actually comes to my house at night and makes the shoes.
Yeah.
And then I do nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your last name isn't actually Shoemaker, it's Clark, but we call you John Shoemaker because you actually do make shoes
overnight
at night, like an elf
in my house.
Yeah.
Nobody ever sees me though. I'm very discreet.
Like the Kool-Aid Man, right?
Yeah.
Just like that. Anyway,
how do you approach that?
So to me, it's about talking to them and learning more about what inspired them to begin with, right? So like, maybe they grew up wearing Nike shoes. Maybe they grew up idolizing those, athletes. Again, I'm not super interested in that. I'm more interested, I guess I'm somewhat interested in thinking about like what reaction that had, they had to seeing those things. But mostly I'm interested in what's different about you than Nike. Because the thing is like, we can make stuff look like Nike all day long, and I can do, I can apply the same styles. I could use the same font. I could use the same color. People are just going to be like, that's a Nike ripoff, and like, it doesn't matter. I need to, like, it's not going to be successful. It has to start with what made you tick? What do you think that, the people wearing these shoes need and want? What makes them go? And figuring that process out. It has to start with, the motivation, the reason behind it. If they clearly believe you are the owner of the shoe company, I forgot. You clearly believe that you have something to bring to the table. If you're just a Nike clone, then you're probably not gonna, succeed anyway. If you have something else to offer, I'm more interested in that, and that's what we're gonna build up to.
Cool.
So
let's fast forward then to working with Carbon 4, who has such a unique brand,
right?
Such a unique identity in a space that there's a lot of unique identities. Craft brewing, which is, it's kind of changing now as well, from more from craft brewing to I forget what it's called, the next thing. Because if everybody's craft brewing and everybody's craft brewing on a certain volume level, then no one's craft brewing in the same way that craft brewing was kind of when it started. So that's neither here nor there. But working with Carbon 4 on their identity, coming to fruition in a project for Champagne Tortoise. So start us off down that path.
Well, the thing about Carbon 4 that's fun and interesting, I mean, they're strong personality types just in themselves, right? I mean, we know the guys really well, and they're fun and interesting just by themselves. That's how they work and who they are. What they won't get caught up in, and what they don't get caught up in, is the idea that they need to tell a story. You know what I mean? Like they have all sorts of meaning imparted in or on their beer. That's really not it. I remember sitting at the bar with Ryan Koga, and he was like, yeah, I don't have a bunch of like BS that I need to like, try and impart some stuff. Like that's just not my jam. That's not why I do it. I just want to make stuff that tastes really good, and I want people to have fun. So half of this stuff that we think of, all of this stuff that we think of, is just the result of just like we thought this was funny, we thought this was fun. It's like a random thing. It made us laugh, and that's what we want people to enter into. We just want people to enter into this sort of space of having fun and not really caring. I don't have a lot of like, really deep meaning in all of this stuff. People will ask like, oh, what is the cat and the unicorn? You know what I mean? Like, what does that represent or whatever? It's like, it represents a fun looking picture. I mean, really is what it is. Like, it's just fun. So that sort of carefree, kind of whimsical sort of thing, that's what drives them. That's what makes them go. And that's what we want to bring out. So instead of like doing all of this very deep storytelling, it's more just like, this is going to be a party. We hope you have a good time. Not going to think too much about like crafting a story. It's just going to be having fun.
I want to interrupt real quick because it's interesting too, that perspective, which they've communicated, and you see kind of in how they brand things. But it's interesting because they are super interesting people. Like there is that depth still. Yeah. But it's not, I mean, they don't have depth for depth's sake. They have depth because they're interesting people doing something really amazing together. And so there is that depth. There is, especially with the beer, every beer has, some kind of memory or story or experience that goes with it. Like Lady Luck, which is Ryan Koga, I believe, at his mother-in-law's cabin, drinking Bordeaux wine.
Right.
That's where the inspiration comes from. And is it an Irish, what is it? Is it Irish red? Yeah. Irish style red. I can't remember the technical part. But is it a very technical flavor, in that, spec? No, not much of that. Their work is, but it comes from this experience. It comes from this depth. Even though there is this playfulness where they're like, no, we're not, like we always joke, and you had that idea of let's do that creative where Ryan is frolicking through the wheat fields, and it's not that
they don't take themselves too seriously.
Their seriousness.
Yeah. I think there's something that, and it's funny because like listening to what Ryan would describe, the way that he thinks about it. And a part of your job and part of our job is to like take that and interpret what they're actually saying, because I think what we've noticed about them is like mostly they're just very interested in not just going along with the rest of the industry.
Right.
So they have stories, but Ryan's trying to like emphasize it's not about that necessarily. It's not about this rich tradition of excellence in the wheat fields of Nebraska or what,
Yeah. Well, there's that too, but then there's also like sometimes the depth of the idea. Sometimes it is attached to a specific memory and event. Sometimes the memory or event was a conversation they had, and they said two words together, and they laughed about it for 20 minutes, and then that's the name of the beer. Like, and that's it. Which is great. You know what I mean? Like that's really can be an effective thing. Now, when we talk about the beer brand, right? So each one of those stories,
Belly
Bongos. Yeah, that's the new one. So, it's like it's funny, and it's seriously the depth. It's not very deep, and it doesn't need to be because it's Belly Bongos. That's good enough. It doesn't need depth. Their brand, which is something that we've worked with them on, is again just a reflection of who they are, because they're so much fun, and so we want that carefree sort of fun attitude to come out. But then if we're going to tell a story, it's going to be about these guys that just want to have fun. You know what I mean? And there's the story right there. There's that depth that we can start to create, and we can start to have something that people can sort of attach themselves to and get behind. And that's, when we were developing the website, fleshing out some of that content, the style, the motivations were, let's do something that looks crazy, that doesn't look like anything else. We want to seem like they want to have fun, but that they also, it's just sort of like, yeah, damn the torpedoes. I don't care what other companies are doing. I specifically want to, you know, sort of call BS on some of that stuff and just be like, it doesn't need to be that, you know, emotionally deep, whatever kind of stuff. It's like, just have fun. And that's good enough. And so that like that whole kind of attitude, you know, like it or not, or whether they intended it or not, there is fun, there is depth there, you know, and that's kind of what the identity is. And that's where that authenticity comes through. Sometimes authenticity is, we didn't really go at this with the intention of coming across as overly authentic, but that in and of itself kind of
so let's go to Champagne Tortoise and looking at that and the authenticity in that development and the final product, because that's crazy. I was there in that meeting, and it was crazy that day, and it was crazy the next day, and it's still crazy. Yeah. But I still love it. People love it. You know, the response has been overwhelming. Yeah. Overwhelmingly positive, and you know, it's something unique that we were talking about maybe in content marketing, like being bold and trying things because they want to create this experience. You know, is unique, and they're in a unique position to do it. So
and nothing is really more authentic than the sort of fourth wall break that they make with that. With that branding. So why don't you jump in and talk about
so yeah, we got the process with them is that we'll get the artwork from the artist, and then we'll turn that into a package. And when we got the artwork back, it was awesome. It was really, really interesting. There was a tortoise, there was like some lightning happening, and there was a big bowl of champagne on its back, and it looked great. It was awesome. And then the more that we looked at it, we just kind of decided, you know what, let's just play with this a little bit. Let's see if we can, if anything else kind of comes out of our, you know, just kind of working on this and thinking about it. Because one thing that they wanted to do was move a little bit away from the idea of the champagne bottle, partially because of confusion with beer and champagne and labeling. So that we need to like separate ourselves from that a little bit. But then also just because they wanted to explore. So we were sitting in the meeting, and we had this character, this tortoise character, that has a monocle and a top hat and a mustache. And we were talking about different things that we could do, and we thought about putting him next to is it Dame Maggie Smith from Downton Abbey. Yeah, like in a scene. So that was kind of funny, that image of sort of her looking old and sort of stoic, and then next to this stoic looking goofy tortoise. Thought about putting him in all of these different because he was a very kind of stoic looking, you know, tortoise.
As stoic as a turtle
as stoic as a tortoise can be.
Get a right to pay the price,
which is pretty stoic. But then putting him in these sort of like scenes of adventure. So like that he would be standing next to a wall of pictures of himself doing crazy things, like, you know, on a lion hunt and flying through space and going on safari and wrestling and whatever else, you know. So that was kind of funny, and we were like, that would be good. But the time crunch that we had didn't really allow for that. That would have been a lot of further artwork and further exploration. We just had to, you know, it had to go out. So we sat and, you know, we're all together in this meeting, and, you know, we're eating lunch together, and there was some tension, some frustration, just because we were kind of just spinning our wheels a little bit. But eventually we got to the idea that they thought it would be, we had these, there were these memes of like terrible high school photos, or like 80s, bad family photos, or awkward family photos, I think is the website. You know, there's these goofy photos, you know, from the 80s where like these glamour shots, right? Like dude looking sort of silly, you know, whatever. And then like in the background, there's like this sort of looking off into space, looking, you know, just taking themselves way too seriously. And that was funny. And so then we were like, what if he had a glamour shot? It's like, okay, so that we incorporated this cartoon tortoise with a real tortoise in the background as like his other view, but it's like this goofy looking kind of like derpy tortoise. So we thought that was funny. And then kind of all at once, there's memes that are like this, that exist like that.
I think at some point too, when we had something up on the screen, I think it was Alex who was like, this is stupid.
Right.
Well, there was like a pause and some laughter, and he's like, well, what if we, what if we tried that as text?
Well, that's what we did. So we were looking at different ways that we could actually write the name of the beer. And so Champagne Tortoise, there was, champagne, kind of like a scripty looking sort of stuffy thing. And we played with that for a little bit.
Yeah, because the tortoise himself is kind of stuffy, which makes it
very stuffy.
Unique.
That's kind of the thing, is like that we wanted to make the tortoise look kind of stuffy and stuck up and but silly, like he takes himself way too seriously. Anyway, then I kind of just had the idea, let's just bail on that for a second. And what if I typed out Champagne Tortoise in impact meme font, font, like just bright white, all caps, black border, just boom, Champagne Tortoise. And it worked. It clicked right in and it worked.
To be clear, the it worked was we exploded with laughter, could not contain the laughter, and questioned our own sanity.
Well, right. That's exactly it. Especially,
are we crazy, or is this good?
Especially when Alex said, we were there's like the meme format, right? There's like the top and then the bottom, and the bottom is kind of the kicker. And, kind of coming up with what are we going to put on the bottom? And Alex just said, this is stupid. So I just typed it out. This is stupid, period, stuck it on the bottom, and we laughed for 10 minutes. Yeah. Like, part of that was because we had been sitting in there all day, and some of that, like that work and that tension and that exploration and kind of, I don't want to say failure, but just like nothing really clicking the way that we wanted it to, just culminated in this like, oh my gosh, this encapsulates that whole process really, really well, and it made us really happy. So
I haven't laughed like that in a long time.
Yeah, we were crying. I mean, we were crying. We were laughing so hard. So we ended up going with it. We were like, yep, this is going to be good. We put Champagne Tortoise, this is stupid, on a box and put it in stores. And that is the reality. On the front, it says Champagne Tortoise, this is stupid. You turn it on the side, it says Champagne Tortoise, very stupid. That's it. Like, that's it. Just, you
that
can't.
Sounds like marketing death.
Right. It's like, this is a terrible idea. Yeah. It was one of those where we loved it at the time, thought it was perfect. And then,
let's talk tomorrow.
Let's talk tomorrow. And then cause I was like, this is brilliant.
Well, you came in and you're like, was that good? Or was
like, is this,
I still don't know.
This is good, right? Like, we're good. This is a good thing. I'm pretty sure that this is good, right? Yeah. It was very, I had a little bit of like, oh man, that's bold. Like, it is authentic. It's clear. It was the most organic way that could have come about.
Most authentic.
Yeah. But then it was like, oh geez, how is this going to be received? Kind of a thing.
I mean, being authentic, is that scary?
Yeah.
Like showing the world who I am as opposed to putting up a front, like even for a brand, right? For people, absolutely.
And another thing that we talk about is like, the ability to get a reaction. Like, you're going to get a reaction. And I think sometimes people shy away from like, this is another blog topic that we'll hit at some point, but failing in marketing, like if you just try to make the safest thing possible and you get no reaction, that is a failure.
Right.
That's not successful. So if you get a reaction and maybe it wasn't what you expected, or maybe it's even a little negative, you can at least pivot, react from that. So anyway, sometimes clients they'll shy away from that, being authentic, being a little daring, and then you get no reaction, and no reaction is a failure in marketing. If you can at least respond to a reaction different than you thought it was going to be, or maybe even a little negative, by pivoting your marketing. I mean, we could look at Domino's as an example as well. That authenticity. Taking responsibility for something that they felt they failed on, and then changing their marketing and admitting it. We could go into that. That's a whole other example.
Sure.
But
yeah, that's
anyway.
Just real quick, that's fantastic, because like I love Domino's now, and I feel like I remember, I think it was their sauce, could have been anybody else's, but I do remember, like I was like, oh, I just don't like this. This is not for me. But then after the rebrand, I was like, yeah, let's try them. And, you know, just blown away. Part of it is their marketing.
Sure.
Right?
Their marketing is
everyone
awesome.
loves this now, and it's great. And it was through that authenticity that we bought into it, you know. I do believe that they changed their sauce and they changed the way they did things. But how drastically different is it? I don't know, maybe not that much. But they were honest about the issue that they saw, the desire to do better and be better. And then the, you know, complete transformation, they were just, you know, public about that. And that's that authenticity right there in that core.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. And specifically back to just the idea of getting a reaction. I mean, we knew, for better or for worse, like, I don't know if people are going to like it or if they're going to not like it, but they will see it. They will notice it. You know, that's definitely not going to be a thing that they just are like, oh, I guess I hadn't seen that sort of a thing, and be like, oh no, that's the one that says this is stupid right on the side of it. Like, and that is a good, it's a lot better, I think, to be fearless and just say, you know what, this is who we are, and if we need to dial it back or, you know, whatever later on, we can do that. But, you know, it's, I think, only a benefit. It's a high risk, high reward type situation. The risk, obviously, is that somebody's gonna not really like it or whatever, and be turned off. But the reward is that they're gonna, at the very least, recognize, like, these guys aren't fake, you know, and that's valuable. That's really, really, really valuable.
So that was authenticity in branding. Thank you so much, Philip Hitu, lead designer, Backflip Films, for joining us to talk more about that, showing us a real practical example of successful, authentic branding.
You bet.
Next week, we're going to talk about partnership versus the client-vendor relationship, how they're different, why partnership's awesome, with Scott Feil, our director of business. It'll be fun. Remember, tune in every Monday. You get a video, a podcast, and a blog with interesting topics. Type below, send us an email, let us know other topics you want us to talk about, or things that you find interesting, and we'll get it into the schedule, right?
Yes.
You heard it here first. See you next time.